Welcome back to another episode of Boomer Bust, your home for NFL Draft Talk. I'm your host, Terry, and we're about a week out, man. About 7 days from the NFL Draft first round, 2018, all that good stuff. It flies by sometimes. It's been a long one. It's been an interesting one, to be honest with you. But anyway, getting into some final thoughts, and I'm going to go position by position. This episode, going to be talking about the quarterbacks. So just kind of the thoughts on the class as a whole, some guys that I like, some guys that I might not be as big of a fan of, riskier types and, some sleepers, all that good stuff. But, quarterbacks, man, this last few years have shown us that teams get a little silly when it comes to quarterbacks in the draft. I mean, you got guys that should not have been anywhere close to where they were drafted, in my opinion, that go very high. I mean, it's a competition, and I still think it's young teams, desperate teams. Yes, quarterback is a big difference maker for you, but you gotta evaluate the right quarterback. But unfortunately, we live in a time where the owners, which more importantly, but also the fan base, are just so short attention span, and everything has to happen right now. And so you got people making decisions just trying to save their job and not really build a correct team. So even if you get into a situation where it's a year where the quarterbacks just don't fit what you're looking for, you see people scrambling to try to go get one, and it's just disaster for everybody. So this year, I don't think it's no different, but I do think you have way better prospects than you have in a while. I mean, this reminds me kind of when Goff and Wentz went, where you felt like, man, I feel good about these two, but it was just those two. So them, in the beginning of the process, people were like, we don't know how good they are. And they eventually go on 1 and 2. And we seen the fruits of that. And it's even at that draft time, you could check my notes. I felt good with those two. I'm like, I'm okay with them being pushed up. But then you get in a situation like last year where Trubisky, Mahomes, and Watson just clearly were not ready. And you had them being pushed up all over the board, and it was ugly. This year, again, I feel like real good about these prospects. There's still the situational fit and the coach fit, scheme fit, all that stuff that's going to play a big part. But I just feel like the teams that need QBs and the QBs we got match up pretty well this year. So I like this class overall, and my thoughts on the class haven't changed that much, to be honest with you. I think the biggest change had to be Josh Allen kind of adding. So to give you an inside look, what I do with positions when I grade them, basically grade the depth of the position. Well, excuse me. I grade the depth of the position, and I grade the top talent of the position. I grade it out of 5 and I average it out. So, looking, and quarterbacks, it's difficult because it's not like there's going to be 50 quarterbacks drafted in, the draft. So, depth is a little different, but you pretty much look at, viable quarterbacks, how far do they span? And it's tough because usually with quarterbacks, if they're viable, they're going to end up in the first few rounds. So that's why it's tough. You don't have quarterbacks, or good quarterbacks lasting, round 1 through 7. So it's tough, but you look at this group, and I think the sheer number of quarterbacks give it a lot of depth. Now, is that going to spread past round 1? Not really. Because, again, like I said, we got to a point where teams are just going to swing the bat in the first round. So it kind of is what it is. But even if you just look at first-round quarterbacks, you're talking about 4 right off the bat with Josh Allen and with Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold kicking things off as the favorites. Josh Allen wowing people like you expected. And then Baker Mayfield, he already wowed people, but he had to fight a lot of stereotypes this offseason to the point where people are comfortable with him. And so, do I see a situation where they can go quarterbacks 1 through 4? Yes. Do I think it's likely? No. But I think when the dust settles, you're going to have 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round one way or the other. And then you throw in the wild card, Lamar Jackson, who was really, for me, in the middle of the pack, but then, kind of got left in the dust. And partly due to his attitude for me. I've talked about him and his decision not to do the 40 just out of protest and all that. And the attitude has rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. But as far as a quarterback, I know he's a quarterback, but he does have question marks, that haven't really been answered for me as far as a quarterback, not as far as, him running. So he's a wild card that you still expect to go in the 5th or the first round. And then even on top of that, you got Mason Rudolph, who I think is just as good as Josh Allen. I think his ceiling isn't as high, but I think right now he's just as good as Josh Allen. But obviously as we get closer to the draft, you could have smoke screens and whatnot, but it seems like Mason Rudolph is getting noise and buzz in the first round. And really, again, it's just because if these quarterbacks get ran on in the first 15 picks, then who's left? It's kind of like musical chairs. Nobody wants to be left without a seat. So now, instead of waiting on Mason Rudolph, I might just grab him in the first round. So the quarterbacks get pushed up. It's just how it is, especially with teams that really need them, and we got people transitioning out like Carson Palmer. You got Drew Brees getting to the end, Tom Brady getting to the end. You got Eli Manning getting to the end, Roethlisberger. So people are starting to get a little itchy. But as far as some of the guys I like, or like the ones that I feel real confident in, honestly, it's been the same guy the whole time, and that is Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen has been my number 1 quarterback this whole time, and nothing has changed. I just feel like as far as pro ready, that's the guy. And I hear a lot of talk about college schemes coming into the NFL. And you know what? Some of the window dressing, some of the formations might be coming in, but the game's not changing. The game's not changing, especially for people that operate at a high level. You can see the Tennessee Titans and Mariota chugging along and, making some splashes. But the guys that's going to be kicking down the door every year, not just making a splash, is going to be those guys, those high level quarterbacks that can do it. And when you really break down football and scheme, the formations and the plays and whatnot, it's not so much different. It's just really the ability to process the defense and make the right decision. That's what it always comes down to. Now, as far as how your philosophy with the passing game, that's going to differ by the coach, but there's no scenario where quarterbacks come in from college, spread quarterback, and don't have to evolve. That's just not going to happen. Even with Deshaun Watson, you got a guy that they put in a friendly scheme. And I think what's going to end up happening, I might talk about this later, is that teams are going to start dumbing down the offense, which they've always done, but I think they're going to really dumb it down to like this, zone read play action look or movement they like, off play action instead of doing play action under the gun. They're going to do a little more pistol stuff. They're going to do a lot more screen stuff. They're going to do that first year as the quarterback grows and then get to some more advanced stuff. But I don't think, like with Watson, he's got to grow. Yes, he was able to use his strengths and do some things his first half of the season that we got to see him when they changed the offense, but that you can't do that your whole career. And so as much as people want to talk about is not that important as it used to be a pro quarterback, it's not true. I think you still got to be able to do it. And it comes down to processing information, and Rosen is the best at it for me. Not only his experience under center and the mechanics of it, but really processing defenses downfield, and then his accuracy. That's also the biggest thing. Processing information and accuracy. I think, and I don't want to say any of these guys are safe. No quarterback is safe because it's so dependent on other factors that he's definitely going to need a team that can pass protect for him. But I think he can make decisions quickly. and I think he could put the ball where it needs to be. So I don't think he needs receivers to bail him out, but he definitely is going to need protection. And so, I hesitate saying he's the safest guy, but he's one of the guys that I feel the most comfortable with and I really like. Now, as far as quarterbacks that are just, kind of risky, I honestly, I would have to say Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson, which are the kind of the stock answers. But and what it comes down to is with Baker Mayfield is that not necessarily his personality, like his ability on the field to be animated with his teammates, but really what's his mindset as a competitor. And I don't mean just going out there jawing with people. I mean to get better, to continue to grow. I know he wasn't a big star recruit or anything. He worked his way up, but still, like, what's his capacity to continue to get better? Like, is that fire and all that energy? Is it, Phillip Rivers, where I'm going to do my work and I'm going to be ready on game day and I'm going to just let it out on game day? Or is it Ryan Leaf, where I just got a fiery personality, period, where that's just who I am? Is it Johnny Manziel? And I don't know. Honestly, I don't. Like, we can sit here and say, his off the field incidents is none like Johnny Manziel. That could be true, but we don't have any idea of what type of person he is. Is he a type of person that is similar to Johnny Manziel or Ryan Leaf or, guys that are just divas? We will never know that in the scouting process. The NFL teams will know it, and we'll probably get a good idea based off where he gets drafted. And so that's just me, because he is climbing an uphill battle. He's a shorter guy than you like, smaller, hands than you would like. And all those other things. His offense was super spread. And so he is fighting an uphill battle. And when you're fighting an uphill battle, you just want a guy that has the right mentality. So those are questions I can't answer from my, house. Those are questions teams got to answer. So although I still like him as a first round quarterback, I think he can do well. I have to count him as risky, because that's a big part of it, is who the person is. And then Lamar Jackson, for obvious reasons. I mean, he's a slender guy. And, while he did show great strides and he showed that ability to evolve and grow, you gotta, wonder, is he gonna go the route of RG3? And not to say that's RG3's fault, but you got teams and coaches that feel like, oh, he's so athletic, we have to do this. And I don't think so. I think he can be more like Cam Newton, but he ain't built like Cam Newton. That's the only problem. And so you got to worry about injuries. And then again, with his attitude, you got to worry about, can he get better? Because there's a lot of holes in his quarterback game. And so can he get better? I think he needs time. Will he get in a situation where he's pressed and people want to see him now? That remains to be seen. And that's the scary part about him. And then as far as sleepers, my only sleeper I would say is Mike White. I think we know all these people. And Mason Rudolph, is hard to call him a sleeper. I don't think a lot of fans might be aware of him, but it's hard to call him a sleeper. I think he's going to go to the first round. But Mike White is a guy that's got good size, good arm, great accuracy, really showed off in the Senior Bowl and Senior Bowl practice. I thought he was a different guy last year. Their coach, I forgot where he went, but he ended up leaving, and they got the offensive coordinator from Notre Dame who took over. And I met the guy from Notre Dame, and I've seen his offense, and I've seen him at clinics, and he is very much the spread mobile quarterback type. You've seen what he did with Kaiser and Zaire and all that. And so he brought that to Western Kentucky, and that's not who Mike White is. Mike White is a very immobile quarterback with a lot of accuracy, a lot of anticipation, but he's not the guy to do quarterback runs and all the spread stuff with. I think Mike White regressed because of the scheme. But I think he showed in the Senior Bowl that when it comes to the pro style looking stuff, he's ahead of the curve. And so, I do think he's going to be a mid-round pick type guy. And I think he's going to surprise people, at how quickly he becomes a strong backup candidate and maybe eventually a starter. So Mike White's a guy that I kind of got my eye on. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the quarterbacks. I mean, we've talked a long time about all these things. I don't think there's much more to say. I guess if I could do my top 5 real quick, number 1 would be Rosen. I fell number 2, and this is tough to say, but I think my number 2 might be Baker Mayfield, 3 Darnold, 4 Josh Allen, and then 5 Lamar Jackson. And it's tough. I mean, we could break it down different ways. If we're talking about like the way the NFL teams see it, the way I see it, if we're including potential, if we're talking about ability to impact the game right now, it'll be different. But I think Baker, while he might not have a huge ceiling, I think he's more ready than people think he might be. And Darnold, I think he's less ready than people think he is. People act like you could just throw Darnold in as the immediate starter. I think he's going to have a lot of gunslinging growing pains in the NFL, to be honest with you. But he's got a unique arm, and so does Josh Allen. So, we got to kind of see. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting at right now, 1 week from the draft. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Go to the comment section. What do you think about these quarterbacks? Do you got a team that you might want to go after one of these quarterbacks? How would you stack them up? All that good stuff. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around, and thank you for listening.